Madam Clerk, we have quorum. We're going to call this meeting to order. Please read the public speaking guidelines and evacuation announcements.
Upon activation of the emergency alarm signal, all persons should immediately exit the building. Please use the exits to the left or right front of the council chamber or the east or west stairwell outside the rear doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed down 9th Street and into the assembly area located in the former public safety building parking lot. Able persons should assist visually and hearing impaired visitors with exiting the building. Public speaker guidelines. Individuals wishing to speak during public hearings and the public comment period are generally allowed 3 minutes to speak. Persons appearing before the committee are not allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, use language of a personal nature which insults or demeans any person, including comments directed at public officials or staff members that are not related to their official duties, or address or question staff members directly. All questions are to be directed to the committee chair. Failure to adhere to the guidelines may result in speakers forfeiting any remaining time, and further disciplinary action is necessary, which can include barring from attendance at future meetings of the committee for a period of 6 months. And Madam Chair, all members of the committee are in attendance today, and you do have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any persons here to speak for public comment?
Public comment is now open. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this committee regarding items not on today's agenda? Madam Chair, seeing none and no one signed up to speak virtually before the 10 a.m. deadline, the public comment period is now closed and back to the committee.
Excellent. Miss Eva Colin, I think your first presentation, we're going to hear from Miss Eva about the Positive Youth Development Fund. It's a very important effort that you all have been working on, and we're excited to have you with us today and look forward to this presentation.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'm Eva Colin. I'm a senior policy advisor, and I lead our Office of Children and Families within the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services. This presentation does spotlight the PYD fund, but we're also providing a more broad update on positive development as well, just to make sure we have alignment on language and terms. And then we do have next up here to provide additional detail around their administration of the fund. This is not working. Do you have another clicker, Kimberly? Okay, there we go. Okay, so for the agenda today, we're going to run through definitions. We're going to review some of the examples of positive development in action, talk about how we got to where we are today in 2026, review some data trends, touch on a couple opportunities to continue our efforts around positive development, and then again, dig into that next step update. Just to ground ourselves in shared language, positive development is a framework, and as Tori Edmonds said to me once about 10 years ago, it's not difficult, Eva. It's just positive experiences and positive places with positive people. Now, there is a much more wonky definition that's available from various research entities, and so that's available in the deck. But ultimately, what we're talking about is an approach and a framework. The Positive Development Fund is one of our tactics in terms of advancing positive development as a city, but this is not something that's been restricted. Positive development is not something that's restricted to the Office of Children and Families or to Human Services. This is an approach and framework that agencies across the city take. And so within that approach informs these strategies. Prevention, which are efforts that promote CDC identified protective factors, like positive relationships with peers and adults. That's the work that Office of Children and Families coordinates across a variety of agencies and supports internal and external partners. It also includes out of school time. That's a major part of where we put our time and our treasure in terms of advancing positive outcomes for kids. But it also includes mental and physical health care, supportive services, benefits navigation, literally anything that treats a child as a gift and somebody who holds untapped potential versus a problem to be solved is positive youth development. Diversion is, again, while we may think of more court-involved activities as not always being positive, the way we approach diversion can be an approach that is informed by positive youth development, as is intervention. When we look at examples of positive development in action across the city, we can include our after-school programs that allow kids to explore their passions while including, benefiting from remediation academically or getting exposed to career opportunities through Middle School Alliance. Looking at our summer camp opportunities, the We Matter program, which works with a very specific and small number of identified kids, looking at our, funded organizational partners that are supporting children's mental health care, communities and schools that's working to connect families and kids to services that they're eligible for, and then the work that we do in Office of Children and Families every day to provide this support and air traffic control across our partner agencies to promote alignment, communication, and collaboration in pursuit of best possible outcomes for children and families. The Positive Development Fund is probably our most visible effort on positive development, where we're working intentionally to support older youth aged 11 to 19. These are a number of our providers. I named some of our larger organizational partners on the prior slide, but I do want to highlight these are the folks who've received city funding through the Positive Development Fund this school year and through next summer. So it's a variety of different organizations of a variety of different sizes across the city. And I just do want to ground us in our history, because this is not, while the Positive Development Fund was established in 2022, the Richmond's approach to PYD predates that by a lot. In 2010 to 2012 is really where the focus on out of school time started to stir up. It became a key lever as identified through the Maggie Walker Commission. But before that, Next Up RVA was launched as Middle School Renaissance 2020 in response to outreach and engagement by city and schools leaders who were looking for ways to expose kids to positive opportunities outside of the school day. From 2017 to present, we see a dedicated focus on investments both in Richmond Public Schools and out of school time. And we've continued to maintain our engagement with VCU, which is providing a lot of the research that's supporting the CDC identified factors. And then in 2021, we received the work group recommendations from the Gun Violence Prevention Work Group, which led to, of many other things, the establishment of Office of Children and Families, the pilot of We Matter, as well as the pilot of the Positive Development Fund the following year. And so when we look at the data trends over time, like really from 2017, when we really started investing deeply and dedicating capacity to coordinated and aligned efforts, including increased investments in RPS, which is an important aspect of positive development, we see how our Richmond has outpaced peer divisions in reducing chronic absenteeism post-pandemic. We see that the graduation rate is increasing. And we also know from national research that participation in quality out of school time promotes better student attendance, better student behavior, and increased completion of school. And so we see the ties here. And then when we look at violent activity, we see a significant reduction in the number of youth who've been shot. This is from end of year data. And then fewer youth involved either as perpetrator or victim in violent incidents. There are still some opportunities for us, though. There's still some things that we can do to strengthen our approach and make sure we're serving every child in the city of Richmond as well as we possibly can. And one of those is an implementation of comprehensive program evaluation and quality improvement. We had posted an RFP last summer, and we're in the final stages of negotiation of that process to bring on a contracted agency to actually do this quality evaluation, quality improvement for our own agencies. So looking at parks and recreation programs, looking at library programs, looking at police programs, justice services programs to ensure that we are holding our internal partners to the same standards and giving them the same opportunities for professional development as our nonprofit partners and their funded agencies. Looking at targeted multi-generational support, specifically to children who are transitioning from the Richmond Success Academy or incarceration and their families. So what we recognize is that for kids who've kind of already crossed that line or if they've made a mistake, there are not a lot of supports in place to help them until such point that they are actually incarcerated. And so what we really want to think through is how can we partner more closely with Greg's team with Justice Services and with Richmond Public Schools to make sure that we have really thoughtful approaches to providing support to those kids and their families as they come back to their home schools or go to a new zone school to maintain their success in school and in life. And then finally, looking at Medicaid as a potential revenue source to cover qualified mental health provider costs associated with some of the programs that we're doing, which are a significant cost driver. But I am going to turn it over to Next Up before we enter question period. We have Trey Manisha Lamy here today, and Dr. Lamy is the CEO of Next Up, which has a variety of engagements with the city of Richmond in addition to the Positive Development Funds. So you may have heard their name through the Middle School Alliance, also known as their core model of services. They are one of the Safer Communities partners that Greg's team is working with, and then they also were a key partner on the Human Services Summit. So with that, Dr. Lamy, if you'd join me.
Thank you, Eva. And so I'll talk a little bit about the Positive Development Fund, how it's taken shape over time, and then also there is a packet that I provided to all of you. So if you have any additional information on PYD, there is a handout there that gets more information on PYD in particular, as well as Next Up overall. Okay, so today we'll talk about our role as an out-of-school time intermediary, which covers everything from vetting, positive development programs, all the way down to professional development and technical assistance support that Next Up offers. As it pertains to vetting programs, we currently work with community volunteers to review all of the applications that come in for PYD. For instance, last year alone, we received roughly 199 applications for programming opportunities for youth. We also do assessment of fiscal responsibility and organizational readiness before awarding those grants to the programs, and we make sure that there's alignment with youth development priorities. Finally, we have approval by advisory committee from Next Up and our board, and then we send the final list of all of the programs to the city for final review and approval before we move forward with the programming and funds being implemented. So this is a breakdown of what it looks like within our intermediary work. We do through contracting and compliance, review all the contracts that come in for PYD. We also review the budgets and allowable expenses to make sure all of the expenses are allowable that the program providers are asking for. We also verify that they have insurance because they're working with young people and that their background checks and safety plans in place. And we review all the invoices and final payments before they're delivered. As it pertains to data tracking and accountability, we're really pleased to say that we have a citywide data management system called CitySpan, which is also nationally recognized. It's also offered in several states across the nation. And we here in Richmond, that is called Nexus, the Nexus system. And that system is used for enrollment and attendance tracking. We have provider performance dashboards that we also continuously look at how providers are performing in their work over time through PYD. And we have a student academic youth outcome survey. We do a pre-test and post-test, engaging young people to get a sense of what their experience is like within PYD. How can we improve over time? There's also a mid-cycle and end-of-year outcomes report that we do and administer as well. As it pertains to monitoring compliance, we are really pleased to say that we were definitely listening to City Council. So we have increased site monitoring across all of the PYD sites and making sure that all our programs are monitored. We check for safety, staffing. We also look at program quality. We review the invoices once again and looking at, okay, they requested X. Is this actually taking place within the program? And we make sure that before the funds are released, that all requirements have been met. As it pertains to professional development, Next Up offers professional development to all programs within our network, including the PYD program providers, and it is at no cost to all of the programs within our network. They receive training on data evaluation as well as grant readiness. They also receive SEL, which is social emotional learning training, and youth development best practices that tie into national best practices. We provide hands-on technical assistance for smaller grassroots organizations and providers as well. We're really excited to also say that the majority of programs within our network are SWAM programs, which are small, women-owned, minority-owned businesses. And then we also provide continuous coaching throughout the grant cycle. As it pertains to outcomes, this is some of the outcomes that we can share. Since 2022, we're pleased to say that we've served roughly 1,000 youth or more every year across summer and school year cycles. There are 40 plus organizations funded through PYD alone, and they're diverse neighborhood programs that are throughout the city of Richmond. We also have approximately 70% of youth that live in quality census tracking areas throughout the community, and then the SAO highlights from our young people, the youth are saying that they're reporting more safe and welcome environments within the programs. They also say that they're also showing improvement in communication and confidence and stronger connection to peers as well as adults. Some of the successes that we have noticed is that we're really excited that there is a mix of grassroots and mid-sized organizations, which means iron is sharpening iron, and we are learning from each other. And they have those spaces, the smaller organizations, to learn from the larger organizations that are within the network. We also have quality and accountability that has been strengthened over time through the vetting and the monitoring and data systems that are in place. As it pertains to accountability, through the enrollment, attendance, and outcomes tracking that we have within the city system, we're able to make sure that we're holding programs accountable to growth. And I want to make that very clear that our approach is not a punitive one. It's really looking at, especially our small grassroots organizations, how we can help them grow so that over time we could serve even more and more young people. We offer free professional development, as I mentioned earlier, which is a huge strength. And the fact that we're getting positive feedback from the young people that are participating in the programs are also really strong. Youth outcomes overall is really good. As far as the challenges, although we have, like I told you earlier, 199 programs that have applied last year, unfortunately, over the years, the funding has remained flat. So program costs are increasing, but funding is flat, which means that although there are some strong programs that apply, what tends to happen with Next Up, they'll apply. And our goal is to always award the programs that have been vetted and approved, but we're not all the time able to award them for the full amount because we have limited funding. As far as the provider capacity strains, there are some administrative data and compliance requirements that are a little bit of a stretch for some of the small nonprofits, which is why customized technical assistance and support that we offer to them is really important as they grow their organizations as well as grow their potential and capacity to serve young people. As it pertains to staffing shortages and rising operational costs, that's another barrier that takes place, unfortunately, and we are working with the program providers to address that. They have expressed also concerns and challenges with trying to manage having insurance, making sure there's transportation available for youth to come and go through the programs. And before we go into questions, I do want to let you all know that within the package that we shared with you, there are also QR codes at the end of the packet from Next Up that has 2 dashboards in it. And that dashboard will give you all city council members access to the data so you can know exactly how many youth are enrolled in all of the programs. You can look at it based on the zip codes that you operate within your districts, and you can also look at it based on the schools that you're operating within. Thank you.
Can you state your name and title for the record, please?
I am so sorry. Traymani Shalami, CEO of Next Up RVF.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all first and foremost so much for your work. And I've had, been fortunate enough and seen this live in action. And I just can't say enough good things about you and your team and all the work that all the providers that are serving our youth are doing. So just wanted to say thank you, and it was a great presentation. I think we have committee members that have questions. Councilman.
Thank you. I wanted to know how this intermediary relationship compares with the non-departmental grant program that we're spinning up that also has intermediaries. Is it the same or is it similar but different? How does that compare?
Dominic, do you want to chime in? Because I think Dominic's been and Dominic and Amy have really been attentive to the kind of the differences in the Venn diagram. I would say ultimately, like our grant contract as we work for the city attorneys. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Eva Colin, Senior Policy Advisor, Office of Children and Families. Here I am. What I will name is that the conversations I've had with attorneys about the differences is that our grant contracts with Next Up are primarily around the outcomes that we seek. We're not contracting with them necessarily to be a grant making agency. It's, for instance, with the Middle School Alliance grants, we're saying our outcome is we want there to be no cost programming available to every middle school student after school. So that's the scope of work, not the grant making itself. So that's one example. And that's similar with the Positive Development Fund, where we're saying we want to make sure that there is publicly funded programming available in community settings, because and I think this is an important detail that I sometimes forget to share. There is no other public funding source for youth engagement in community settings. There are 21st century grants administered by the Department of Education from the federal education department that supports school-based programs for certain high and middle schoolers. But one of the reasons why we invested in this is because there's no other state or federal funding for 11 to 19-year-olds. And so that's part of this. But all that is to say the grant contract scope of services is around the accessibility by our partners. But with that in mind, I will tee it up for whatever can be shared while there's an open procurement process.
Dominic Barrett, Senior Policy Advisor, Office of the DCO for Human Services. To Ms. Colin's point, there is an open RFP right now, so I will need to be careful about what we say. But to piggyback on the early portion of what she said, there are certainly some similarities in that there are experts in our community doing great work, and the city can sometimes benefit from leaning on those external experts and working with them to do that great work. There is, I think, some high-level differences, and again, I want to be careful here, but one being that, as she said, Next Up is doing more than just providing services as a grant maker, and they're delivering sort of a broader wraparound programming, whereas we're looking for grant makers to really be focused on managing a grant program under the direction of the agreed-upon contract with the city.
Okay. I guess I also want to hear about that level of accountability for these small groups. I mean, are we finding that there's ever too much of a burden placed on them, that they struggle, or that we even have to like cancel any programs because our standards are too high for them? And could that be a problem?
Well, before I hand it to Chairman Isha, because this actually predates even your time at Next Up, this is actually what we heard through the gun violence prevention work group, which was that small organizations that had received direct city funding like weren't able to keep up with our reporting requirements, or were found in default of contracts, and there were audits and things, and they just felt like they were not prepared to participate. And so one of the things that came through was that there needed to be a way for the city to provide city funding to these smaller organizations that may not be able to be good candidates for a traditional non-departmental or outside agency fund. So that was where the Positive Development Fund emerged, was kind of trying to solve for that specific problem. That is to say, we've been learning a lot over the past 4 years, and it's not been without warts and pimples. So with that, if you want to share about capacity constraints.
And as I said previously, our goal is not to be punitive, but to really be accountable and work with them to be accountable to growth, right? And so Next Up also offers, before the RFP process even opens, there's an RFP informational. We have our staff is open always to talk to people about how to apply, how to submit information. And with the site visits also comes now a detailed report of how well they perform, things that they can work on, things that we can work on with them together, and encouragement to attend specific PD sessions that are going to help them to increase or improve their application, and so on and so forth. So it's never usually like an X out totally, unless there's a significant challenge with compliance that now goes against the ethical code of our organization or the city.
Hey, thank you. I have a couple of questions from our staff, and then I'll just ask like one or two. And I think you may have mentioned it, but I just want to go on record asking them because the staff has to take notes. So one of the questions were, how many students participate in PYD funded programs and where do they live? And then I flipped open the booklet and it said that, I guess, 1,871, is that the number?
I will say that my data for last year, I've got last year's data in front of me, but the first piece is the QR codes that she shared with y'all takes you straight to that dashboard. So you can
Right.
find all that data.
But we want it to be
yeah.
public, so.
Yeah, for the record,
Yeah.
what we have for school year 2024-25 and summer 25 was 1,555 unduplicated youth. So there were some kids who participated in more than one program. We are not counting them twice. That's the beauty of the system, because it's hard to do that sometimes. And that actually was an increase of 23%. So I think we may have older data in the deck that's in front of in the handout. And then about 70%, 69.4% live in qualified census tracts, which is, again, for the record, that's identified by the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development.
Say it one more time. 20, how many?
70% of participants live in qualified census tracts. And so, for the record, the qualified census tract is a statutorily mandated designation, and it's any tract for the most recent year for which census data are available on household income in such tract, either in which 50% or more of the households have an income which is less than 60% of the area median income, or which has a poverty rate of at least 25%. So 70% of youth live in those tracts in the city of Richmond.
Okay. And then, you mentioned where they live. Okay. And then the other question is, where are their program and deserts, and how is PYD working to address them?
Do you want to touch on that one? Okay, I can share. And Next Up can always add color, but Next Up conducted a landscape study in 2023 and again in 2024. And those studies, in which they worked with external consultants as well as their own staff experts, identified locations primarily in the South Side, certain parts of North Side, and the East End, where we saw the least number of programs across all age groups. And so the landscape study, I believe, is linked in the.
Yeah. So it is north side, south side, and east end where there are deserts. The handout to the landscape study summary is also in your packet, and it flags exactly which zip codes that those deserts are in. So one of the things that we're working on, that we've been working on doing this year, is really identifying when we think about PYD, where are the deserts, where are the gaps, where are the quality census tract areas, where is there high crime. And then how do we make sure that we're thinking through strategically and thoughtfully where to plug in programs based on that criteria?
Okay. And I'm not going to go through all the questions, but I think my colleague might have asked this, but if you can just clarify, how is PYD integrated or coordinated with Parks and Rec and or RPS funded OST programs?
Great. So there's actually the Office of Children and Families convenes quarterly meetings of our major out of school time partners that are working at systems levels. And so we are actually having this conversation on an iterative basis. I think, was it yesterday my email went out that was like, who's doing spring break programs? Let's make sure we're lining those up. So we are working across all partners. This again has been an area of growth for us. We've learned that there are some aspects of actually city code that makes it hard for Parks and Rec facilities to be available to partner organizations. So we've been looking through that from the policy side to facilitate the opportunity of having a rec center director saying like, hey, I would love to have, a class that's teach the double Dutch class, but I don't want to have to hire a program to do that. Like maybe PYD can just plug in and offer that program in a center. So we're working through that, but at the highest level, we meet quarterly with Parks and Rec next up, as well as other partners like the YMCA, Boys and Girls Clubs, and others to make sure we are aligned. And one of the priorities in the next year or so is really for us to get clear on our lanes. Like, what are we doing versus what are you doing? I will say the Positive Development Fund, again, its focus on ages 11 to 19 reflected a recognition that there was programming offered by RPS, Parks and Rec, related to the younger kids. And there was also public funding for that. So we were looking to solve a very clear gap there. But with next steps of work, we've been able to continue to refine our focus as we go.
Okay.
And just to add to Eva's point, there's actually today at 1 p.m. Parks and Recreations and NEXA we're actually meeting to talk about plugging in programs at Parks and Rec facilities. So we meet and we speak and we connect regularly. And earlier today, there was a site leadership team meeting, as your point, as of RPS. RPS middle school principals were all present. The youth development agencies for Middle School Alliance were all present, as well as, the Next Up staff talking about data across the schools, strategies for recruitment, retention, and engagement as we enter into this next chapter of the year.
And so, thank you. But I have other questions. So, can you explain or just maybe clarify what is the difference between when we talk PYD, i.e. Next Up, but PYD for nonprofits that are also doing youth development work? And I think that it's very important that we clarify that, because nonprofits that are working with young people may not be using the term PYD, but are. And so how are we to make sure that we're all in this together and we're working together, but that we're not differentiating it based on language when there are so many other people serving and doing pretty much the same work?
Exactly. So I think I will note that the PYD fund as a name I'm not a very creative namer, and I needed an option that wasn't youth violence prevention, and positive development seemed like a good one. The consequence of that, though, is that it's very confusing because you have the PYD fund, which in my brain is this very specific fund that's administered by Next Up on behalf of the city to pass city funds to nonprofit and small businesses and folks across Richmond who are serving kids while providing them the resources they need to be successful and get good outcomes with our youth. Whereas we talk about positive development as a full framework. Like, I think, the work that Greg is doing in DJS, like Greg wakes up in the morning, goes to sleep at night with a positive development framework. Like, he does not see kids as problems to be solved. He sees kids as potential to be untapped. Sorry to call you out. Chief Edwards is similar. And so I think we are at this incredible point in Richmond's history where all of our leaders are aligned with the tremendous potential of our young people and don't see them as problems. We see kids as sometimes they get caught on their worst day. But to your point, council member, we have so many folks who are doing this work. And I do think there's this opportunity to help elevate the language so that folks can be competitive for funding that's being offered by state, federal governments, nonprofit, like philanthropic entities, et cetera, for the purpose of positive development without it being only Next Up that's doing this. Correct. And I think both Trey, Manisha, and I are constantly like, remember, PYD is a framework, not just this one thing. But it is, I do recognize that my attempt to have an asset-oriented name became very confusing
Correct.
for everybody.
So I do think that that is something that I think as we move forward and as we are connecting the dots and coordinating, I do think messaging is important. And I do think that we do need to be clear and really speak to what we're doing across the city as it relates to youth development. Because whether it's positive or youth development and folks are doing that and we're not naming it, it just gives the appearance that it's only, one level when to your point you named earlier, the work that you are doing are at a systems level and someone may be doing it. So I do think we need to begin to clarify, and I think we need to do a better job at educating our communities so that they understand, because sometimes a system like Next Up may be scary and it's easy to go to a smaller nonprofit, but if you don't have the resources, the transportation and all these things, that's also something that I think can hinder our young people being served. So I do think we need to share that. And then my last two questions is when it comes to, you named two things, one about the decrease in violence, and then you also named about the graduation rates. How is that data confirmed? Because it's to my understanding that that is RPS data that when they presented to us last month and said, here's based on the work that we did, this is the increase in our African and Black and brown students graduation rates as well as. So how is when you named that the data metrics that you presented, you said that based off of positive youth development, we have seen an increase in graduation rates, attendance, because kids are coming to school, and then you named the decrease in violence. So I also want to know, one, where is that data? Can we get it? And I would like to see how we compare and contrast that based off of, and I know this is a lot, but I want to see the specifics on that if possible.
So I just want to highlight that when I talk about positive development as a framework, the act of council approving investments to the tune that you all have in RPS is in action of positive youth development. And so that is an implementation of that framework. And so when we look at that level of investment, and we saw, I think, a 70% increase in youth programs funding to Parks and Rec in the past 7 years, 8 years, what we're seeing is decisions being made by our funding level folks that is with the mindset of like kids are high potential. We just need to give them opportunities to explore that potential and untap it. And so when we look at all of that together, we do see, now, yes, it is Jason's team's outcomes. Like they're the ones who did it, but y'all funded it. So that's not what I'm. But that's why we provided the update holistically around how the city has approached positive development, how we're seeing this in every corner, even places that we wouldn't traditionally look for positive development, because A, we see that the funded agencies are delivering outcomes. And then B, there is national data that I'm happy to share around access to high quality out of school time. And I think Trumisha may have the source on the top of her head that shows clearly that kids who participate in these programs do better in school, behave better, and complete at a higher rate.
Correct, but that's a theory. I'm asking for the data that we're saying in that slide that specifically said, and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And this is not a debate. For me, I want us to be always just clear, because there's a lot of confusion around what is being funded and the impact of those funds. And which is why, again, as council, right, when folks are lobbying us for dollars and wanting to know, okay, well, what's the impact of this or what's the impact of that? I just always want to make sure that we're being clear. And so, again, when the superintendent, presented last month, he mentioned, nothing pertaining to that increase relative to out of school time. I'm not saying he should have or he shouldn't, I don't know. But I'm just saying then today we received this presentation, and the presentation then says, based off of, hey, council, you funded this, and because of what you funded and the work that we're doing, these are the results. So I'm just saying, you see it? Can you get what I'm saying?
Next Up's got that data for the kids who participated in their programs too.
So I think there's two things going on here. And one, first off, I'm a researcher, I'm a research practitioner, right? So I want to be very careful in describing causations versus correlation, right? We want to be very clear on that. The last study I believe that Next Up did in 2022 did look specifically at youth academic performance of the young people enrolled in programs within the Middle School Alliance, how they perform academically in math, how they perform academically in English, as well as their disciplinary actions. It was roughly 25% higher for youth that were engaging out of school time. So no, it's not just us referring to national data. There is data nationally, and there's also data locally that suggests that youth that engage in out of school time do tend to perform better academically. Now, is that a direct causation? No. But there's also a lot of wealth of data and information on prevention. And what we're talking about here is when you look at the crime data that I know, I'm sorry, that I know Greg has and presents and so on and so forth, we can see in here in Richmond, the age of people that are committing violent offenses has now risen. And we also have seen over the last several years an investment in positive development. So less young people are creating violent offenses. So when you talk to folks like Chief Edwards and other folks that are engaged in this space, you'll hear things like there are less young people that are just mobile, not doing anything, that we have places now for them to go. And we have things for them to do. And so just out of school time in general, youth spend 80% of their time, up to 80% of their time awake outside of school. So where are they after school? Where are they on weekends? And where are they in their community? We need to make sure that they have safe places for them to go, as well as opportunities for them to learn, grow, and thrive that connect them to the beautiful resources that are here in Richmond. So an investment in PYD is an investment in small businesses, local businesses within the community that have said, they know they're not getting much for doing this, but they're investing their time and energy to give back to the young people. So we're investing in our economy, and we're also creating space for families to now work. And there's data that's specifically on this region that speaks to working families in our region have said having access to quality out of school time allows them to work and know that their kids are in safe places.
Correct. Thank you for that and for
okay.
that breakdown. And I guess the driver that I'm trying to drive home then is there are like 5 different pieces to what you're saying. I'm just asking, how do we bring it all together? Because there is, like you just named, you said you can get this data from the police that says this. You can get this data from this area that says this. We give this data from Next Up. What I'm saying is that for our community to understand the holistic piece of what is happening, we have to communicate the whole picture. And a lot of times we're not getting the whole picture. We might get something from RPS that doesn't say that this is a part of that. I think some of what we're attempting to do, I mean, you all are doing a great job, like, let's be clear. But what I'm saying is the messaging, and that is part of the challenge that we've had for a very long time. It doesn't look like, it's not that we're not working together, because you named 50 things, but the messaging is not out there in our community. And the reason why it's not, and I'll even just speak to the numbers, 1,555 people when we have 200 or however many. So that's all I'm attempting to say, is that I think we got to do a better job at like threading the messaging of like what is, and connecting the pieces so that the families can understand that even a part of out of school time or positive youth development can also be the work with justice services, the work with parks and rec. I don't think that that's a clear message, and that's all I'm saying. So thank you for all of the information, and thank you for breaking it down. But again, I think we just have to do a better job at threading the messaging.
I really appreciate that. And I think that ties in with some of the conversations we've been having with OSC around how we are talking more about the work holistically rather than just the events that we've held or, places to go. So thank you for that feedback, because I think that echoes a lot of what we feel. Not to speak for your traineeship, but I think we, would love to make sure we're figuring how we're elevating this cohesive message of like the community, not just the city of Richmond, but the community of Richmond has taken a big bet on our kids for the last 10 years. And it's paying off. And both in terms of RPS and in terms of out of school time programs, and whether it's run by the city or libraries or, even just having libraries open on weekends and things like that, like all of that is a positive development framework.
Right.
And so we'll take that with us.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all. We're running a little bit over time. So I am going to ask for our next presenters, if they can, to keep their briefs to 5 minutes or less. 3 minutes is extra credit and a cookie. Superintendent Cameras, if you can join us. We're always just so appreciative to have your time, your presence, your love, your energy. Thank you for being here with us today, and let's hear your updates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, just for the conversation you were having, I can safely say it is all of these efforts working together that are making a difference for our children. I wanted to briefly just note, last time I was here, the state had just released its new accountability system, and there's a lot to unpack, but there are a few things that I wanted to share just very quickly. As a reminder, there are 4 levels: distinguished, on track, off track, needs intensive support. I do want to note we had 5 distinguished schools, including Richmond Community, which was had the highest score of any high school in all of Region 1. So that's all of Central Virginia. That's not just, yeah, you can, amen. I also want to note that when you look at all of the elementary schools in Central Virginia, J.L. Francis was in the top 5 for reading growth. And I also want to note on the elementary, of all the elementaries, Mary Munford was in the top 5 for all of Region 1. Council member, I think you would enjoy hearing that. I also want to note for middle schools, top 5, again, all of Central Virginia, Albert Hill, King, and Henderson, which is very exciting. And then for back to high schools again, I mentioned Community Open High was 4th in all of Region 1, very exciting. And for 4-year graduation rate, we were just talking about in all of Region 1, the top 3 schools are Community Open and John Marshall High School. So lots to celebrate. We obviously still have a lot more work to do, but super exciting. Last thing I just want to say, as we have discussed, we know the city is facing a tight budget year, as is Richmond Public Schools, and we look forward to talking with you more about that over the coming weeks. Thank you.
Oatmeal or chocolate chip? You kept it under 3 minutes. Thank you. I
you.
appreciate that. Any questions for Superintendent? Okay. Well, thank you so much. I would like to, we are bringing you back in, I believe, March. Yep, in March to review the master facilities plan. And then I think our next, our February meeting will likely give an update on the funding formula resolution. So I
Sounds
think
good.
that will be ready for prime time. But thank you again so much for joining us, and keep up all the amazing work.
My pleasure.
And
Thank you.
I just saw her in the back here. Ms. Shavonda is with us, our illustrious school board chair. Hey, how are you? Thank you for being here with us.
I did not realize she was here.
I know, the whole team. brought
I
her
would
out.
like to congratulate her on being reelected unanimously
Yay.
as chair of the school board.
Yes, I was very, very excited to see that. Congratulations. All right. Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And next, without further ado, our DCAO, Amy Popovich, is joining us here today, and appreciate you being here with us.
Good afternoon, Chair Lynch and council members. Happy New Year. Glad to be here today. I'll do my best to beat Superintendent Cameras at 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Oh, he left. 3 updates for you all today. A quick update on our inclement weather shelter and how it's going, our DSS ribbon cutting on our new space, and our Parks and Recreation master plan. So inclement weather updates, it's been really great partnership between Salvation Army and Caritas and our city and regional team. Over the last month, we've had an average stay of 138 individuals per night. We've worked through a lot of kinks. We've been able to talk about and hear from our partners what needs improving. We've improved transportation, for example, and have really smoothed out that process. Important to note, part of our Caritas Surge contract includes funding for Caritas residents to transition to part of other permanent housing. And so since September, 35 residents with our funding have moved to permanent housing, 7 of those directly from the surge shelter. So really great work happening there. I actually got to stopped by Caritas last week and really got to see the staff is a combination of newer folks interested in the space, but also some really long-term dedicated staff there. So it's going well. Also hosted recently, yesterday, an additional community partner meeting just to make sure our friends and our folks who have been working really long and hard in our community are up to date and know exactly how we're working and how we can partner best together. All right, ribbon cutting. So next week, January 14th, Wednesday, 4:30 p.m. Would love to have you all at our DSS ribbon cutting at 300 East Franklin Street. This has been about a 10-year journey, knowing that we needed to move from Marshall Street Plaza really to a better quality place. This building is on the bus line. It's downtown. It's a beautiful building. I'm really excited for you all to see it. And it comes with free available parking in the parking deck adjacent to that building. So next week, again, I invite you all to come. There'll be the ribbon cutting at 4:30, site tours after that. Happy to, of course, schedule other tours if that doesn't work for you. Excuse me, the site will open to the public the next day, the 15th of January. Southside Plaza has continued to open and will continue to open and be available for residents during this time, and then it will stay an access point ongoing. All right, finally, Parks and Rec Master Plan. I presented to you all in December. The 90% baked master plan. It is online. It was published the 19th of December, and it will stay open until March the 6th. So we really encourage folks to get involved. There are listening sessions. There are presentations happening. There's website. You can actually click on the website, see the plan, comment on the plan. To date, in just those couple of weeks, we've had about 1,100 connections on checking out the website, checking out the plan, et cetera. There'll be several district presentations coming up in your districts. If anyone still needs to connect with Ryan Rinn, ryan.rinn@rva.gov to get more information, to have a presentation come to your site. So we're really excited about that, and we'll be back to you all later this spring with the full plan. Thank you so much.
All right. You also get your choice of cookie. Thank you so much, Dr. Popovich. Do you have any questions for Amy? Nope. Councilmember Jones. Okay. All right, Madam Clerk, we are going to roll into our papers for consideration. Start with our first one. Read it into the record for me.
Item 1, ordinance 2025-275. To amend ordinance number 2025-057, which was adopted the fiscal year 2025-2026 special fund budget and made appropriations by transferring $1,100,000 from the Safer Communities Special Fund for the Department of Justice Services, creating 2 special funds for the Department of Justice Services called Safer Communities, YWCA, and Safer Communities Next Up, appropriating $600,000 of the transfer funds to the Department of Justice. Transfer funds to the Department of Justice Services Safer Communities Next Up Special Fund, all of the purpose of supporting the city's gun violence prevention and intervention framework. That paper is before the committee.
Madam Clerk, we'll now hold a public hearing on this paper.
Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in opposition to this paper? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support of this paper? Madam Chair, seeing none, the public hearing is now closed and back to the committee.
Committee members, discussion? I think there was a question about monitoring the process. Okay. Do you want me to go ahead and catch it, or you go?
Staff has, we just have one question. Which one was the other monitor? Can you outline the grant monitoring process for these funds?
Absolutely. Greetings and Happy New Year, City Council members Lynch, Councilwoman Jones, and Councilmember Mr. Britton. As far as the monitoring, I do have my Safer Communities grant coordinator here today. But for its accountability, each grant has sub-award agreements We do performance metrics, monitoring visits, site visits, as well as what we did is mimic what we see on the federal level for our grant monitoring. That includes performance report quarterly. We do in-person roundtable meetings with each sub-grantee with Safer Communities. That's held once a month, each Friday, on the second, third Friday of the month, as well as Ms. Richburg Wilson does the grant monitoring for all these individual associated grantees, specifically ones that are internal city organizations as well as external partners.
30. One quick one. So is noted that the grant period ends on June 30th.
Absolutely.
And what happens after that?
So if you've been keeping up with the JLOC report, Richmond, like one of 4 locales that get safer. When it was first developed, it was put in a revert fund, meaning that you have almost a short period of time, 12 months to spend this money. It puts us in a pickle because it is a huge amount of money. And majority of the cities that we have expressed interest to or have feedback with the General Assembly members is that we need additional time. With any grant that you get, it's going to be 24 to 36 months. Here, we only got 12 months. So it gives us a short window. We bringing this paper to you all just as a spirit of transparency. This is just a continuation of what's been going on since 2024.
Yep. Yep. Motion to approve.
Second.
Madam Clerk, call the roll.
The committee is voting on the motion for item 1, ordinance 2025-275 to cancel with a recommendation to approve. Mr. Bretson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jones,
Aye.
Chair Lynch.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, I'm going to go out of order. Committee members, if you will oblige, we're going to jump to ordinance number 3.
Item 3, ordinance 2025-277 to authorize the CAO on behalf of the city of Richmond to execute a regional cooperative partnership agreement between the Richmond and the counties of Henrico and Chesterfield for the purpose of supporting a recovery academy initiative funded by the Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority. This paper is before the committee.
Madam Clerk will now hold a public comment.
Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in opposition to this paper? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support in this paper? Madam Chair, seeing none, the public hearing is now closed and back to the committee.
Committee members, any questions, discussion?
Okay. One quick question. Hey, how are you? How many students from RPS enroll at the Chesterfield Recovery Academy?
Yeah, first of all, good afternoon, Chair Lynch, Vice Chair Jones, and Councilmember Breton. I'm Anna Jones, the opioid response strategist with our Office of Opioid and Substance Use Response. Currently in the life cycle of Chesterfield Recovery Academy, 7 students from RPS have attended the school. 2 have received their high school diplomas there, and 1 is on track to graduate this year. Just a small note, this is a smaller program, so what it will always lack in numbers, it will make up for in depth of impact. Part of the intention of this expansion of the Chesterfield Recovery Academy is to dedicate funds to an outreach position to do targeted engagement with the localities with the hopes of getting more regional and equitable regional engagement in this partnership.
Thank you. No further questions. Motion to approve.
May I have a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, call the roll.
The committee is voting on the motion for item 3, ordinance 2025-277 to cancel with a recommendation to approve. Mr. Bretton,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jones,
Aye.
Chair Lynch.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Madam Clerk, we're going to jump back to ordinance 2025-276.
Item 2, ordinance 2025-276 to authorize the CAO behalf of the city of Richmond to execute an outside agency contract between the city and the Boys and Girls Clubs of Metro Richmond for the purpose of funding the expansion of life skills programming at the Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School. The paper is before the committee.
Madam Clerk will hold a public hearing on this paper.
Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in opposition to this paper? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in support of this paper? Madam Chair, seeing no one, the public hearing is now closed and back to the committee.
Committee members?
Yes. A couple of questions. Who from this? Okay. Thank you. So,
Hello, Eva Colin, Senior Policy Advisor, Office of Children and Families.
yeah, thank you. Let's see. Do Brent? What?
I mean, I can just trying to understand the whether this funding is a one-time funding or a part of a repeated contract that we often have. What is the nature of this relationship?
This is one-time funding that was the outcome of the RFA that we posted in August that was due to the amendment last spring. So this was funded outside of the normal non-departmental process. And so we ran a separate notice of funding availability this past summer. And so it is one-time funding. And then as the new grant making agencies will get off the ground, there will be other opportunities to fund youth programs.
Okay, so then will this particular funding have its own monitoring process, or will we basically like rely on rolling into non-D is what we'll actually do?
We're doing that. So yes, so it's going to be according to the same timelines of the non-departmental grant monitoring process. We're going to be doing that monitoring the same way we do. They're going to get the same forms to fill out, the same sort of site visit support, same sort of program support, like review and monitoring that any other non-departmental would get.
Okay. Actually, can you, I guess, remind me then why MLK? So MLK is getting like this special grant, and are we doing other programs at MLK? Is this part of a suite of programs that are being there?
This is very specifically related to the amendment that was submitted by council that dictated life skills programming at MLK in the spring.
During our budget process, where we
Mhm.
specifically dedicated money for MLK. That's right.
We have lots of other things going on at MLK, but this is separate from that
Okay.
due to that amendment.
I have a question.
Quick question. So is the original organization, I guess that's what tripped me up. Is the original organization being replaced by Boys and Girls Club?
There was no organization named. It was life skills programming at MLK. And so we ran a notice of funding availability and held a competitive solicitation and evaluation process with a evaluation panel with multiple staff.
Thank you. So in the it noted funding the expansion. We funded the expansion. We were supporting a life skills. I guess it's funding the expansion of a program for life skills. So the question is, were there life skill programming happening at MLK prior to this RFA?
There's a lot of different life skills programming happening.
But were there specific life skill programming happening at RFA at MLK that the city funded?
Yes.
Yes.
Communities in schools, child savers, a variety of different programs offer life skills at MLK.
So we didn't specifically fund a organization at MLK for life skills.
There has been an organization funded through various budget amendments over the past few years, but this was, we had a line item that said that doesn't name an organization, and by city attorney dictum, we had to run a notice of funding availability to identify a grantee.
Right, and that line item that we're switching now from that line item, where's that paper?
So the line item is life skills programming. We're asking you to make a grant directly from that line item. So we're not renaming it or anything. It's just we're making a grant out of that line item for life skills programming to a specific organization.
And so the city has never funded a $250,000 grant to a specific organization for life skills at MLK is the question that I'm asking. And if so, what organization was that?
How do you want to? I mean, it hasn't been specifically for life skills.
We did.
We
It
did,
was in
yeah.
2023 and 2024, and it was for UBU.
Right, but it wasn't, the line items were different, the language is different, the city attorney directed us to act differently.
Okay, so we had already given, we're trying to get a line of sight in how much total funding we've given to MLK, and I think
That's a great question.
I think what we are, we in our district were zoned to River City Middle School, and many other schools in the South Side that have received zero support of any kind for any out of school time or positive, any of it, right? So MLK seems to have been getting, and I'm not, trying to play the game of which school is more worthy to receive resources and funding, but MLK has seemed to get a disproportionate share of city funds to support these programs, and we are trying to figure out how that happened. And given that, is this an appropriate appropriation, or should this actually be looked at holistically and compared against the needs of other middle schools across the city?
I may defer to the attorney because we were directed to post a notice of funding availability for programming at Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School based on the council amendment and the budget for fiscal year 2026. I don't know if I was under the impression that we were not lawfully permitted to include other schools or districts in that allocation. But to your point, yes, there have been multiple investments made over the last few years outside of the non-departmental process that have supported programming at Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School.
Okay, with that, do we have a motion, committee members?
Motion forward to council with no. Oh, no, we want to continue this paper. Motion to continue.
Second.
Madam Clerk, call the roll.
The committee is voting on the motion to continue item 3, ordinance 2025-276 to the next Education and Human Services Standing Committee meeting held on February 12th, 2025. Mr. Breton?
Aye.
Vice Chair Jones?
Aye.
Chair Lynch?
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
All right, committee members, our next very short discussion item is the draft presentation schedule for EHS. I just want to thank Mr. Will Perkins for just being the best EHS staff committee staffer we've had ever. You've done a great job. And if you have any thoughts on this or want to explain, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but do you have any comments you want to give on this timeline?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Will Perkins, staff for the committee. Again, this is the document we're discussing at the moment again. So we have a draft plan, which we've had a great deal of collaborative input from our partners in administration. So thank you again to Dominic, especially on that front. I'll note again, we've got a plan for the next 6 months of your meetings. I'll note again, Deputy Chief Administrative Officer Ms. Popovich will be speaking at the February OD meeting, just to note that that's mentioned here, although that's a separate meeting. It's relevant to the portfolio for this committee. So again, thank you again for all being here. On the backside, you'll see sort of a list of topics, including some, again, which we plan to reconvene this work again in approximately June to plan out the rest of the calendar year. So again, thank you so much for your support in working through this, and stand by for any further questions.
Right, committee members, this draft will stand, and apologies in advance to Mr. Perkins, because he knows that, sometimes we put some additional items on the agenda just to keep everyone awake. All right,
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did catch earlier, I believe you requested that would there be an update on the funding formula resolution in February? Could we?
Correct.
Just, is there a, do you have a, is that just, I want to confirm that you're requesting that there be an update on the, I believe that's resolution 2025-R023, around the funding formula for RPS?
Yes, and that doesn't need to be a specific presentation, but an update that could be maybe included in the DCAO's update or something. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. With that, approval of the minutes. We'll do approval of the minutes. Clerk.
The minutes to be approved are for November 13th, 2026 for the Education and Human Services Standing Committee meeting held at 2 p.m. If there are no amendments or corrections, then those meeting minutes will stand approved as presented. Those minutes have been approved. Thank you.
All right, and we already checked the box on our staff report, Mr. Perkins, unless you had anything additional to add. No. All right. Well, with that, committee members of the audience, thanks for joining. Oh my goodness. I don't think I saw that on the agenda, guys. I apologize. All right, Madam Clerk, thanks for keeping me honest. We have boards and vacancies to approve. I don't have a packet, so let me
Yeah.
get that under.
It's in the
Okay.
back.
Ms. Nichols, step on up and we'll do this quickly.
Hi, good afternoon. Happy New Year to you all. Pamela Nichols, Council Management Analyst. So the vacancy report before you captures current and projected vacancies through May of 2026. Diving right into the report for the Advisory Board of Recreation and Parks, we have two applications from residents of the 6th District. Ms. Robertson has expressed her support for Cecily Nixon. And then moving on down to the Aging and Disabilities Advisory Board, there were 3 vacancies for a resident of the city who is a senior citizen. We have reappointment applications from Charles Barker and Mary Mason. And then for a resident who is a caregiver of a person with a disability, we have a reappointment application from Glennis Board Hughes. And then for a representative of the business community providing services to those 55 or older or a person with a disability, the board has expressed its support for Autumn Richardson. We did receive an application also from Steve Ebbingen and John Hermanson. And then you also will see that we have a application from Sarah Link, who is now the manager of the Office of Aging and Disability Services. And then moving on to the Community Policy and Management Team, we have 1 vacancy for a private organization located within the city that serves children and families. And we have an application from Brian Chizuk, and he is also a co-worker of a previous member, Erica Mann, who recommended for him to apply to serve on that board. And then moving on to the Human Rights Commission, we have 1 vacancy for a city resident, and we did receive 8 applications. And after review of all 8 applications, the commission would like to recommend consideration for Victoria Goches. They feel like that her qualifications would definitely help to move the commission forward in achieving its goals. And then we're going to move down to the Lewis Ginter Botanical Garden. This application, Vic Murphy, he was also a member of the Advisory Board of Recreation and Park. This body continued consideration of this application. It is July meeting and October meeting. And since that time, we still have not received any additional applications. So that is for you all for review. And then we're going to move over to the Maggie L. Walker Initiative Citizen Advisory Board. And there are 2 vacancies for residents of City Council District within the city with a poverty rate of at least 20% or an RRHA Section 8 resident. And we have an appointment application from Zenobia Carwell, as well as Clarence McGill, initial application. And I would say that we received a recommendation from the current chair of the Maggie L. Walker Initiative Citizen Advisory Board for Mr. McGill. And then lastly, for the Richmond Behavioral Health Authority, we have for individual who resides or has a principal place of employment in the city, we received 4 applications, and the RBHA nominating body ranked Shatini Jackson as their applicant of choice.
Madam Clerk, we're going to try to do this as efficiently as possible. Committee members, I'm going to try to do this from memory. I was 50% looking at you all and 50% paying attention to Miss Wonderful Pam Nichols. So I'm going to try to do this. All right. So for our first vacancy for the Advisory Board of We're going to do this in block. For the first vacancy for Advisory Board of Recreation Parks, we're going to go with the recommendation from the Committee of Cecily Nixon.
Yes.
We're going to reappoint the 2 current appointees, Charles Barker and Miss Mary Mason, to the Aging and Disabilities Advisory Board. We want to appoint Miss Glennis Boyd Hughes to the as a reappointment as well. I apologize. Okay, what else we got?
Autumn Richardson.
Okay, and then Autumn Richardson. Sorry, thanks. Help me out, committee members. Right now.
Yeah. and Sarah Link.
and Sarah Link.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. All right, we're good. For the community policy and management team, we will appoint Brian Chiswick. For the Human Rights Commission, I believe my colleague would like to put forward Mr. Thomas Mundy. We would like to continue the Lewis Ginter appointment for Mr. Murphy. God bless him. We would like to appoint the Mr. Clarence McGill to the Maggie Walker Initiative Citizens Advisory Board. And for the RBHA board, we will go with the Ms. Jackson, the recommendation from
Okay.
RBHA's.
Okay. And Madam Chair, for Maggie Walker, Zenobia Cardwell,
There were two vacancies.
there are two vacancies.
Okay, yes, then we'll reappoint Ms. Caldwell. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. That was a reappointment. We'll reappoint Ms. Cardwell and nominate Mr. McGill as a new appointee.
And you said Thomas Mundy for the Human Rights Commission?
Correct.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
And that's the block. Committee members,
Motion to approve.
I second.
Madam Clerk.
The committee is voting on the motion to forward the board's appointments and reappointments recommendations to council for approval as stated and to continue consideration of applications for appointment to the Lewis Ginter Botanical Garden, Inc. to the next Education and Human Services Committee meeting held February 12th, 2026. Mr. Breton,
Aye.
Vice Chair Jones,
Aye.
Chair Lynch.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
All
Ma-
right, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
Madam
Ms.
Chair, if I may, Mr. Breton, can we continue those consideration for the Lewis Ginter until the next application quarter?
Oh, continue it longer than just next month, you mean?
Yes, it was when we released 90 days.
Oh, then yes,
Yeah.
we should continue
One-
it
Thank you
as
so
long
much.
as it takes, please. Thanks.
Thank
I
you.
might apply. I love Lewis Ginter. All right, well, with that, Madam Clerk, we really have concluded our business here? All right, this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all for joining.